G'day there guys, it's your boy I Read Reddit back at it again with some ProRevenge stories. Sit back, relax and enjoy the ride fellas. I think you're gonna love this one. Our first story comes from user TheAwesomeAustin, titled, Lie About Giving Me a Raise? Say Goodbye to Your Income. Updated, now with 100% more revenge. Background. I work as a subcontractor for a licensed contractor for a realty company. Basically, the realty company buys houses, and the contractor tells us to go to the new address, and my co-workers and I flip the house and get it ready to be rented out. When I first started the job, it was a difficult transition considering I was a plumber previously, but eventually I became a valuable asset to the contractor's company, thus the realty company as well. The contractor was infamous for being a bit of a butt when it came to actual business and money. He was constantly yelling and screaming at the plumber, the painters, etc. about prices and how it took them too long and he wasn't paying that much. Which I would understand if the yelling was actually warranted. When it became tax season, he gave everyone else a 1099 and then said he lost mine and got ticked off every time I asked about it. If someone knows what I can do about that, please do let me know. This guy makes easily $2 million a year, so he says, so I don't really think $100 off the price really matters that much. Not enough to get into a screaming match and ruin relationships with the other subcontractors at least. I've been working for him for about a year now at $16 an hour. Not too bad for my area, but I make him a lot more than the $160 I make every 10-hour workday. One day I asked him for a raise, which he laughs and then shuts me down immediately. After that I decide to work harder, get houses done faster, and show him that I deserve a raise. A few months later, I decide to ask for a raise again, but not as directly. I say to him, so, how can I be more useful to the company so I can increase my productivity and both of us can make more money? He says to me, get a van and a trailer, then we can talk about more money, in his normal gruff tone that says, shut up and get back to work. After that day, I worked side jobs here and there. Worked a lot later than I usually would, and even all throughout the weekend, saving up as much money as possible. I sometimes wouldn't eat some days just to save that little bit of extra money. He loved how much I was getting done, and I could practically see the dollar signs in his eyes when I told him all that I got done every single day. Finally, the day came where I saved up just enough money to buy my dad's old Ford van. Then, not long after, I bought a little piece of crap 5x10 trailer that I had to fix up. The following Monday, I pull up with the bright white gas guzzler and the fixed up trailer following behind. I walked up to him smiling ear to ear about my accomplishment, hoping he would be proud, or at least happy, about all that I have done. I tell him to look at my new toys, and all he says is, cool, and then got in his truck and left. Okay, maybe he's just busy, I thought, as I processed his extremely underwhelming response. At the end of the day, I finally have a moment with him to discuss my raise. So, I have the van and the trailer, I've saved up and done everything you said that I needed to do to make more money and be more of an asset to this company. He narrows his eyes at me. What are you talking about? You said that if I got a van and a trailer that you'd pay me more, I said, confused. I never said any of that crap. You have to actually work if you want anything else from me. I was devastated. I've been working my butt off while he sat on his butt and watched. I followed every instruction, completed in the very least 2 houses a week, which he makes about $5,000 per house, or so he says, and he acts like I do nothing for the company. I swallowed my pride and let out a quick, yes sir, and left his office. I was finally tired of dealing with the contractor, tired and defeated. I decided it was time to start looking for other jobs that actually had the possibility to move up. Then the company electrician gave me an idea. I'm gonna call him Adam for privacy reasons. Adam is a good guy all round. If you needed advice or just someone to talk to, he was always there for you. I told him about everything that has happened with the contractor and told him I was looking for other jobs. He simply said, you're not supposed to be here to try and make it to the top. You're here to learn. Learn everything you can, and then one day you'll be the contractor. A better one than the current contractor, that's for sure. Why not go look into getting your general contracting license? It's not hard, you just have to work for it. That's what I did to an extent. I worked for the contractor for years dealing with his bullcrap, until one day I decided to get my electrician's license. Now, he doesn't decide what I'm paid. I do. That is, if he wants me to work for him. And if not, then I have other customers to make my living. I took his words to heart and came up with a plan. Revenge. I did some research on becoming a general contractor in my state. Requirements differ in other states, of course. Basically, I would need books to learn the material, references, a bank reference, and to pass the test. The books were pretty expensive. With bills, taking care of my family, and a monthly van payment, it seemed impossible for now. That is until I found a group following in my area that needed a handyman to do a variety of things. Perfect. Extra money. Soon, my name started blowing up in my small town. I did everything from repairing fences to installing toilets. I took everything I learned from plumbing and from working for the contractor and used it all to build a reputation. References? Check. This is when I decided it was time to open my business. Again, I did my research and learned all I had to do to open said business. I'll spare you the details, but it was basically business license, how to get an LLC, liability insurance, think of a name not already taken, blah blah blah. It took a while, but I sent in all that I had and prayed to whatever God there is for me to be invited to take the test. I waited and waited until about 3 weeks, and finally I got a letter inviting me to the next test. It was a 3-hour drive and on a Tuesday. Great, another speed bump. Have to miss work and pay $300. The day of the test came and I panicked. It was open book, but I eventually ran out of time and didn't get to finish. I was so disappointed in myself that I basically gave up. I just decided to keep working my job and a little side business. A week later I was holding my son. He's a beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed reflection of myself. After I managed to get him to sleep, I stared at him and wondered if I would ever be able to give him a better life than I had. I remember growing up in a crappy trailer, being hungry and made fun of at school because I wore clothes from Walmart. Not the best way to grow up, but I had a roof over my head. I always wanted video games that my friends had but never got. I wanted to go to trampoline parks and water parks. I've only been once in my life. That's about when my resolve renews itself within me. I had to do this. Not only for me, but for him. I saved up all over again and came up with the $300 and requested for a retake of the test. I took practice tests online, so I was ready. The day came and I barely managed to pass, but I still passed the test and received my license. Now time for the fun part. With all of the time passing, I became pretty close friends with the owner of the realty company. Going to barbecues, stopping to tell some corny jokes I saw on Facebook. He loved puns, by the way. And doing extra tasks not under the contractor. One day, I came into his office and saw some invoices from the contractor on his desk. I just said, "Wow, that's how much you're paying him? Dude, he should at least take it a little bit easy on you, being that you have known each other for so long." He just nodded and said, "You think so?" And he just looked at the papers more. Since then, I would say little comments about how much the contractor was being paid and how many houses we could buy with all that money. Just planting seeds in his mind that I slowly water until they turn into a beautiful garden of resentment. Finally, the owner calls me and wants me to come to his house for a beer and to talk business. We've done this a few times before. It's usually about his wife or the last time he played golf. I pull up into his driveway and he told me to meet him out back. After the usual, "How are ya?" he tells me that him and the contractor had a bit of an argument and that they're limiting him from now on. Then he turned to me and said, "There's a meeting on Friday. I want you to be there by 9 o'clock. I hesitate. I wasn't sure what it could have been. You know how your parents would ask, "Do you have something to tell me?" And as a kid you'd go into a panic and think about all the bad crap you did at school. No? Just me? Alright. Yeah, sure, I'll be there," I managed to say calmly through a scrambled mind. A few beers and stories about fishing trips and I headed home. That was today. I was so excited to write this, I started as soon as I got home. The meeting is on Friday. If you want me to, I'll update after the meeting. Sorry it was so long. I guess I was excited and scared of what is about to happen. The way I see it, it can go one of two ways. One, I could be asked to take the contractor's place and have the contractor work for me. Or two, they fought about what I had said about prices, and they came to an agreement that they need to confront me and or fire me. I'll just let you know when I do. Thanks for reading. Update. It happened! Oh my freaking god! So I went to the meeting this morning, and as I came in, everyone shook my hand. Some I've seen before and said my "Hi, how are yous" to. Others I've never met in my life. This was an investor meeting. Some of these people are worth figures in the 9 digits. I was internally freaking out after finding out, but if you've read this far, you'd know I'd know how to keep my cool. After our greetings, we sat down and waited. It wasn't clear who we were waiting on until an hour later, the contractor walks in with his usual stained t-shirt and cargo shorts, while I'm in a nice dress shirt and tie. Figured I would look nice for this one. Everyone made a face and greeted the contractor while we got settled again. The contractor didn't seem to notice me until we all sat back down. I saw him do a double take and give me a look that said, "What the fudge are you doing here?" I'd requested off today, so I could only imagine what he was thinking. After introducing the new investors to the old investors, the owners got started saying about how we were going to have an amazing 2019 and an amazing future for the company. I suppose he was just hyping up the new guys so they would invest more. About 2 hours of production values and budget stuff, blah blah, he turned to me and said, "I would just like to take the time to congratulate OP for passing the general contractor's exam and his newly acquired business." I smiled and thanked him. He then continued, "As we are growing, we have a demand for new and inspiring people within our company. After hearing about OP's success in both our company and his, I would like to personally ask him a question in front of the whole team." My heart is pounding in my throat as each word sounded slower than the last. I took a side glance at the contractor, who's visibly sweating at this point. "OP, how would you like to be our new property manager? You may still have your business and do your own work, but we'll pay you exclusively to be our personal contractor and help take care of all the new and old properties." Everyone turns to me, and I take a second to respond. Just then, the contractor stands up and says, "What the fudge? I'm your goddamn contractor! I've been your goddamn contractor for over a decade! You can't just replace me for some dip crap that doesn't know what he's doing!" The owner smugly looks at the contractor and says, "We're not replacing you. You just have to answer to him now. All tasks, orders, and billing will go through him now. If you would like to still work for us, granted you mind your mouth and tone, you will run anything you do by OP." The contractor looks enraged and he turns to me, "You're fired. You have no business here anymore. Now leave." The owner chuckles and says, "Ha ha ha, you don't have that power anymore. As long as OP agrees to my question." I turn to him and say, "Are you sure you can afford me?" I laugh and shake his hand. "Yes, this is all I've ever wanted, all that I've worked for. Now we can get some real work done." I have to admit something. I've been practicing that response since I was asked to come into this meeting. Lol. The contractor just stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him, and I didn't see him for the rest of the day. After he left, we continued to discuss the goals for this year, and it turns out they bought 60 new houses for me to work on with the investors' money, and he just looked at me and said, "Can you handle that?" I happily said, "Yes, sir," trying to keep my eyes from watering. All I thought about was my family and how proud they would be of me. In little under a year, I've received a great license, my own business, and pretty much non-stop work. If there is anything you guys reading can take from this, I hope it will be this. Don't settle in life. Be hungry to better yourself, and be the best person you can be. The only person stopping you is yourself. Again, I'm sorry that this is so long. When I wrote the first part, I've had a few drinks, and when I got home, I continued drinking, lol. I could condense it, but I'm not going to, due to the fact that it was a pure reaction of it all. The puzzle coming together, if you will. Thanks for reading. I just want to say congratulations, OP, and I wish you all the best for the future. That is amazing. And I imagine that happens a lot in the workforce. Tell me what you guys think. Our last story comes from the user Metalman7, titled, "Grumpy Telemarketer Gets a Surprise Callback." Here's my encounter with a crappy telemarketing company. I cut some details out because this would have been twice as long. Names had changed and all that bullcrap. Let me start by saying that I get a crap ton of calls from card services. Fudge those guys, this story has nothing to do with them. I like to mess with scammers, so I often take their calls and string them along for my own amusement. I know, it probably makes them call me more, but it's the burden I bear to supply my hobby. A couple of days ago I get a call from a bullcrap company wanting to extend my car warranty. The company has a name on file with my phone number and they think I'm Mr. Jones. I am not Mr. Jones, I'm his son. I guess I technically am Mr. Jones, but not the one they think I am. Let me get on with it though. The agent runs through her spiel for a couple of minutes and I plainly say, "I'm not Mr. Jones." To this she replies, "Ah, why didn't you tell me that at the beginning of the call?" And she hangs up. Jerk! Now at this point I assumed the number was spoofed, but since they sounded American I'll call it back. Even though the number was in my area code, it rings straight into their system and I'm greeted with, "Hello Mr. Jones, can you verify a make and model of your vehicle?" I reply that I'm calling to report that an agent just hung up on me. Then they hung up on me! Fudges! So I call back, a lot, and they're clearly frustrated. This one grumpy fudger answers, and to throw him off guard on an unrelated topic I ask, "Are you voting for Trump in 2020? "Heck yeah I am, while you're gonna be on Brokeback Mountain." Or some dumb homophobic crap like that a Trump supporter would say, and hangs up. I call back and get grumpy fudger again. He's clearly frustrated. He asks if I don't have anything better to do, to which I reply, "No." At this point he informs me that I'll now be placed on the permanent call list and I'll receive a call daily after hours, to which I reply, "Don't you have anything better to do?" Grumpy fudger tells me he gets paid by the hour, so he doesn't give a crap and hangs up. So I call back. At this point, the seemingly small office staff have recruited the big guns out of a desperate frustration to end my calls and sell me a goddamn warranty on a 2003 car with 180,000 miles. Enter Roger. Roger is a salesman. He's as persistent as a motherfudger with his pitch. So I start to accuse Roger of working for a scam company. Roger seems to have a passion for this company, and when I ask for a website, he gives me one. To my surprise, they have their services listed on the site, but the name is not the name they're using on their calls, and the domain is only 2 years old. The name also has absolutely nothing to do with cars or warranties, or anything remotely close to what they're offering. I concede to Roger that I believe him when he says that they're a legitimate company, albeit a crap one on par with the ilk of payday lenders. And we reach a point of mutual respect. Roger is polite with me, so I'm polite with him. Now we're friends. I explain to him my history with scammers, and I tell him the reason that I've been calling incessantly is because one of his agents hung up on me. Roger is not pleased, and he says he thinks he knows who she is, and he'll talk to her. Goodbye, Roger. Have a good day. Set the stage to 7 PM, and I'm on the phone with the wife. My phone starts buzzing, and I check to see who's calling, and it's a restricted number. I tell my wife I'll call her back. She knows I love messing with scammers, and I take the call. I say hello twice, and then to hear the words I'll never forget. "Remember me, jerk? Permanent call list?" I proceed to lol with delight at the absurd notion that Grumpy Fudger has actually followed through with his grand plan of calling me at a mildly inconvenient time. He then hangs up. Now, one key detail that Grumpy Fudger is likely unaware of is that I now have a friendly relationship with his manager, who seems to actually take pride in his job. I also know the number to his call center because I called it about a schmillion times that morning. There was really no need for Grumpy Fudger to use a restricted number. Naturally, the only thing I can do here is call my new friend Roger and let him know how his employees are spending their company time. I call the number and am greeted with, "Hello Mr. Jones, can you verify the make and model of your vehicle?" I ask to speak to Roger. The lady says, "I can help you." So I tell her that one of her associates just called me from a restricted number so he could call me a jerk. She then said, "Let me transfer you to Roger." Roger answers and I say, "Hello Roger, do you remember me from our talk earlier?" He of course does, and so I tell him that prior to our conversation, Grumpy Fudger put me on the permanent call list. I then describe Grumpy Fudger as an old grumpy fudger, and ask him if he might know the agent I'm referring to. Roger declines to name names, because he doesn't want to single out his employees based on their age, and I respect that. I then tell him that Grumpy Fudger in fact just called me from a restricted number so that he could simply call me a jerk. I offered to email Roger the recorded call, but he declines, as we've built a respectful relationship based on trust and civility. Roger then interrupts me and says, "Hold on a second, let me look into this." A few minutes later he gets back on the phone and says the gentleman, Grumpy Fudger by the way, just confirmed my story and that his behaviour is unacceptable. He then tells me that Grumpy Fudger will definitely be written up for this behaviour, and it is quite unacceptable. I reiterate that I thought Roger would be deeply troubled to find out that his employees were behaving this way, as they represent a totally 100% legitimate business enterprise, and this would reflect quite poorly on them. He thanks me for a call, and apologises for the situation. Get fudged, Grumpy Fudger. I hope that was your last write-up. Hey there guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think of it in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to see some of my latest content, smash that big old box in the middle and subscribe for more background noise. Also, check out my new channel called Cobber, link in the description and in that card at the top right of the screen. With that said, this has been I Read Reddit and I'm signing off today. Hooroo mate.